Hi friends. Yesterday we considered the truth that Jesus makes God real. We ended with the passage in Luke 4 in which Jesus describes what it looks like when God gets real by reading from the prophet Isaiah. "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovering of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." Those words were very familiar to the Jews. In those words, they heard a message of hope and deliverance, a message that stirred their heart because it meant that God was indeed still with them and still caring and providing for them. When Jesus finished reading, he rolled up the scroll and gave it back to the attendant and sat down. The eyes of all in the synagogue were fixed on him. Then he began to say to them, "Today this scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing." In other words, Jesus is saying, all that God promised through the prophet Isaiah gets real in me. In me, God's promise of deliverance and hope and freedom has come to you. When God spoke those words through the prophet Isaiah, it was when the people were returning to Israel from their captivity in Babylon. They were rebuilding their homes and their businesses, their entire life from ruins, and things weren't going very well. Times were hard. Food was scarce. Hope for the future was in short supply. The people were desperate and discouraged. They thought that God had abandoned them. But in the midst of that difficult, dark place, God broke through and spoke through the prophet Isaiah, reassuring the people of his presence with them, reassuring them of his faithfulness to keep his promises, to restore them, and to bring salvation to the world through them. When Jesus said, "Today the scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing," he was proclaiming that same message. God is with you. God will restore you, and through you, God will bring salvation to the world. Unlike Isaiah, however, Jesus not only proclaimed the message, but he also embodied it. He made it real. Through Jesus, God is with us. Through Jesus, God restores us. Through Jesus, God brings salvation to us. And God brings salvation to the world by sending us to share the good news of Jesus. Now, we know from experience that hope and restoration and salvation and the presence of Jesus doesn't mean that life is always easy, or that God drops whatever we need or want right in our lap. It doesn't mean that we are immune to disease or tragedy or heartbreak. But it does mean that we do not have to navigate those difficulties and challenges on our own or by our own power. God cares about us. God is with us, and God gives us strength. There is always hope because there is always God. God is among us even in difficult, dark places. And even though there is trouble and hardship, stress and anxiety, prejudice and pain and loss all around us, God is still here. God has not abandoned us, and that is real good news. Thanks for listening. I'll see you again soon.